All right, and we're live. Hello, everyone. How's it going? My name is Johnny with the Turbo Makes Games YouTube channel. I'm here with Rinka. He just developed a game, Marble World. We're gonna be talking all about it today. So, how you doing?
Hello, I'm doing quite good, so to say, under certain circumstances in the world, of course. How are
Totally.
you doing?
Oh, doing very well. So, things are looking pretty good where I'm at right now. Hopefully, we can get to better as a global society here.
Yeah, it's good to hear.
Definitely. So yeah, we're here to talk a little bit about games because you just developed a game called Marble World, like I said, and you had been using some things with Unity's data-oriented technology stack a little bit in there. Of course, this is something that I like to talk about on my channel quite a bit. So I think it'd be interesting to have you on here and just kind of talk about your experience as a developer and just your experience using Unity's data-oriented technology stack for like an actual commercial project. So yeah,
Yeah, good.
awesome. So yeah, I guess let's just start talking about your game a little bit. So kind of give us like what's the high level pitch of your game. What's it all about?
It's in one sentence, it's a physics based simulator, but then with marbles. That's that is literally all there's to it. But there's like objects which are in shapes of tracks, of course, and
Yeah, yeah.
decorative stuff. You can paint things. It's very open, very sandbox. Do whatever you want.
Yeah, no, I love those kind of sandbox games. I know like one of my favorite games of all time is like Roller Coaster Tycoon. And of course, like Minecraft is great. And so this kind of reminds me of that in a way. Like, you're building kind of these little tracks and then you can, of course, have all kinds of marbles, do sorts of cool things with them. So yeah.
Okay,
Um,
great.
yeah, yeah. So I kind of just wanted to know like where did the idea come from? Is had like marbles I guess been like an interest to you in the past or um like where did the idea of the game originate from?
Well, roughly 3 years ago, I believe. Yeah, I stumbled across a video of Yellow's marble runs.
Okay. Yeah, yeah.
You might have seen that.
I've seen his videos
It,
before, yeah.
yeah. So basically, if you play Marble World, you might have also seen that channel. And there were some other channels as well. And back then, especially Yellow's marble runs had marble machines. So the races didn't really influence me, but the machines and seeing all of those thousands of marbles running around, rolling around and in a perpetual loop, never ending.
Yeah.
It was something that was like soothing to me. After a long day of work and you watch one of those videos, it's like very relaxing. It's like, all right,
Yeah.
what if you had a game which was also very relaxing, without any limits, without any restrictions, and you could just make your own course and put some marbles on it and put some more marbles on it, and
Lots
then
of marbles, yeah.
lots of marbles. Um, so that started like 3 years ago. But back then I wasn't good enough to do that, and also Unity ECS wasn't really in a state. I suppose. Looking back from this point right now, looking back at then, there was no way I could have done that, or maybe someone else even.
Yeah.
Um, so then, let's say a little bit over half a year ago, last summer,
Hmm.
um, I quit my job. I was like, no, I'm gonna do something else, boys. I'm out. I'm out.
Nice.
Um, and then I was like, okay, there's a couple of things I can do. Work at another company, another game company, or make your own game. So I was like,
Exactly, yeah.
I do have some funding. I do have some finances. Might as well do it. Um,
Nice.
so that's when it started, and
Awesome.
along the line, I discovered ECS, and I was like, okay, I'm going to use that for Marvel World.
Nice. So you kind of had the idea for the Marble World game before the technology, or did you see the technology of Unity ECS and you kind of started thinking like, what kinds of things would I want to make with this? And then you kind of remembered the Yell's Marble Run.
No, the idea was there before um, I knew about ECS. Obviously, I knew about
Nice.
ECS when I
Yeah.
started in last summer. I knew it existed,
Hmm.
but it was not a. given thing that I would implement it. Because at first point I was like, okay, it sounds cool. I could probably have more marbles, using that, but at a cost of having to do ECS, right? So you have to learn how to program that, how to, you know, it's a very different way of thinking,
Yeah.
comparing
Yeah.
it to normal game objects, normal object orientated. This is a whole different category. And I was like, all right, it has some pros and has some cons to it. We might do it, at some point in time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and I came across an issue with ghost colliding because all of the tracks are like little pieces you could snap together, right? And
Mm-hmm.
the marbles
Right.
wouldn't run, and the marbles wouldn't run properly over them, and they would have like ghost collisions, and they would start bouncing around. And then I realized, oh, if I use Havoc, it will solve that issue. But it's obviously ECS.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
somewhere in December, I was like, okay, I have to make the change, at least on that front, to ECS to fix that issue.
Nice.
And
Yeah.
in the end, and in the end, you also get like 25,000 marbles
Yeah.
extra.
Yeah.
Yeah,
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 totally. I think that's awesome that you kind of had the idea before, and then you came across ECS and you're like, this is kind of looks like this solution to the problem that I have, because it was something that doesn't seem like it was really possible beforehand, especially for someone who's just a solo developer on your own. You don't have obviously the whole engineering budget to put into creating your own custom situation. So that's cool that the idea came before the tech.
yeah, yeah.
Nice.
There is like, I think you could fix it with the normal Unity physics, but it was a little bit dodgy, a little bit, it didn't sound like the right way to do. And
Yeah.
ECS was there, and I was like, it's in preview, sure, but if it works, it works.
Yeah. Yeah, and this is the type of game that you want to have as many marbles as you can, because that just that's part of the fun, right?
Yeah, certainly, certainly, yeah.
Nice.
It's been a real great enhancement to the game. I think that's the right wording for it. You have a game, and the game works. And then ECS will make it bigger or better, more optimized.
Yeah.
And it's more of a add-on thing, other than in comparison of being it like the whole core of your game being ECS.
Right. Yeah. So yeah,
At least, yeah.
so you we talked kind of briefly before, and you basically said that you're not using Unity ECS and dots for like everything in your game. So what are some of the places that you chose to use dots in to get those kind of performance benefits?
Well, so at first I have converted all of the marbles to ECS, as is. The tracks themselves are split into two. So the visuals are game objects,
Okay.
and there for every collider, which would be normally a game object, is now an ECS collider, with nothing else attached to it, and they both know of each other. And whenever you move the game object, the collider moves with it.
Right.
And there are some bursted algorithms, so to say. One of them is like the names above the marbles. The reason for that was I could not like show 25,000 names above marbles.
Yeah. Yeah.
it is not going to work. So you have to limit that. And how do you limit that? Well, based by distance. But then you would have to sort 25,000 marbles based on distance. From your camera position and stuff. Like, yeah, it's not really that fast. So I bursted that, with a system with jobs, multi-threaded,
Nice.
and that's like one part that is making usage of ECS, without the whole collision part of it. But it
Yeah.
does speed up like the game, like a very
Yeah. Yeah.
important part of the game. Are there some other things? The whole sound system, the whole every time a marble collides with something, there has to be a calculation of, okay, how impactful was the collision, what did the marble collide to, and then what kind of sound do I have to play, with which volume, and what area. That's also something that is completely bursted and in ECS.
Awesome.
So
Yeah. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So were there any challenges with kind of doing sort of this like kind of hybrid approach where you have some things that were game objects, some things that were in ECS, and kind of getting those to link? Like what were some of the kind of like main challenges that you had, and how did you overcome those?
Well, the first one was there are three. So the first one was obviously getting the colliders attached to the visuals in terms of all of the track pieces, all of the decorational items. There has to be a way, a universal way, where I can just easily say, all right, you need to convert in the prefab, right? You need to convert this part, but not this part, and they have to move together. Um, so, it wasn't that difficult, but you have to figure it out. One of the more difficult things, which I'm currently struggling with, is let me think, what's it called? So in my world, you can paint things, right? You can paint all of these tracks as well,
Yeah, yeah,
but
yeah,
you have,
yeah.
but you have to hit a collider for that. And now there are some physics objects that move, and in order to have those objects rotate, or move, and there are a few with like blades onto them. You can't paint those because it's a whole hierarchy of joints that is being converted at once. So there's one um, universal system right now where I say, all right, if you hit a collider, um, which is ECS, right, then the parent above it should change the material, right?
Mm,
With whatever paint you've chosen.
okay.
But if you convert a whole hierarchy, it cannot just pick the one above it. It's a little bit difficult, and that's one of the things I'm still working around. Like, okay, all of the colliders are just one entity, right? And I'll just say, all right, this entity holds a component with a number. The number corresponds to the track, or at least the small visual part on the track, right? Um, but if you do that like with a whole hierarchy, it's like way more complicated. So I still have to find a solution for having complex objects with a large hierarchy, which are converted to ECS. How to
Mm.
paint those and how to save that as well, because all the visuals are normally stripped from the physics part.
Right, right. So do you end up kind of doing like a little bit of a lookup, like and then you basically point like the ID to the visual? Is that kind of how
Yeah.
it
So
works?
yeah. So every prefab that you place, every object track piece has a unique ID, so to say. And then whenever I convert the colliders of that object, I say, all right, all your colliders, you all know this ID. And then obviously, whenever I reference to the collider, I can say, all right, what is your ID? What is your parent?
Yeah.
And then with raycasting, I click on it and I'll find the parent, which is the track, which is the game object. So that's the whole way it's set up. And so far, it's working pretty good.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great to hear. And by the way, thank you to Bill Zander. I see the super chat. Great. He says, great interview. Love the game. So that's awesome. Thank you so much for the support here. And then, yeah, kind of going along still with some of the Unity dot stuff. I guess what has your overall experience been developing with Unity dots? Like, what are some of the, kind of the challenges? Just sort of talking about it in general. Like, are there things that you found particularly difficult to do, or things that made something a lot easier than you thought it would be? Just kind of talk a little bit about your overall experience with it.
I think it is very useful that Unity has like this example repository with a lot of different examples of
Yeah, the example
basically
scenes
all.
have been great for me
Yeah,
personally. I've just kind of been going through those, and not necessarily taking it as like this is the exact way to do things, but just kind of figure out how to do some of the basic things inside Dots. So definitely going through the sample packages have been great for me.
yeah, for me as well, and it's really good to see that they're all like very unique use cases.
Right.
There's nothing that's overlapping. It's all very isolated. It's like you want to do something with collisions? Here it is, just pure collisions. That is one of the things that has been very useful for me. But having to learn like ECS from no no knowledge. I did implement ECS somewhere in December, and I had to start from zero. And it was like really difficult getting my mindset to it, because you have to think very differently on data, on systems, on entities.
Right. Yeah.
Um, it is so different having learned like object-oriented programming for years, right? And having used that for years, and then suddenly you have to change that, the whole
Right.
way,
It's
the
a
whole
whole new
system
way
you
of
have in
thinking
your head.
about things. Yeah.
Yeah, it was really difficult, and I had to watch a lot of videos on Unity's Unite in Copenhagen, I believe, and
Mm-hmm.
there's some others as well. And they have like little parts on, okay, how to burst something, how would you make a new job, how would you create a system, what is the optimized way to do, because you can convert game objects into entities with 3 different systems or so.
Yeah.
There's like multiple ways of doing things, and it's like, okay, what is the best for your game?
Right.
And I had to check all of these ways to do things. What is the best for Marvel World? How would I do this? And next to that, there aren't too many tutorials on YouTube. There's a lot of Unity tutorials with game objects. There's a ton
Yeah.
with
Totally.
everything else. It's
Yeah.
it's very overwhelming. If you want to find a tutorial for something, you'll find it. But with ECS, there's like maybe not even 100 videos.
Yeah.
So if
Well,
you want to
I'm
do
I'm
something
hoping to
fresh,
change that. So.
very good, very good.
So
So
how much of the like game object conversion stuff are you doing? Are you doing more just like building your own entities through code, or is it more game object conversion, or is it a little mix of both?
no, it is purely converting game objects. So I have for example, a track piece, which is just a prefab, and it has a script to it at its most parent game object, and I just say, all right, you have to convert these children, and that's basically it. And then the whole script knows, all right, these two are colliders. I have to maybe add some components to it. Have to link them. Have to say, all right, this is your parent now,
Yeah. Yeah.
with this unique ID, and if the parent moves, you have to move with it. And that's basically all there's to it. And as for marbles, it's just the default Unity sphere. Even nothing's changed.
Yep.
So it's just yeah. So it's just one prefab. It is and I just converted the prefab into an ECS prefab, and then just instantiate it and change the material. Add a game object to it for the what's it called, the effects, one for the names, above it. So yeah, there's not really creating whole entities from scratch using the archetype example or something.
Gotcha.
That's something that's like, I don't know. It feels to me a lot of work, and it's easy. It's very easy to just make a prefab like you normally would and just
Yeah,
convert it.
yeah,
Done.
definitely. I think that's kind of the way that Unity is kind of leaning towards. They want people who are familiar with Unity to be able to pick up ECS programming. So I definitely have been a fan of the conversion workflow myself. Now, are you using, like how much are you using like custom authoring scripts? Do you do a lot of those?
No, no, barely. There's like a handful of components that I'm using, like
Okay, gotcha.
my own make components with some values. For example, the marble knows like it has a flag. Do I have to render my name and the extras on it, like the effects? And it's just a boolean, yes or no. And I believe there's like 2 other things on it. So it's not a
Nice. So
very
you keep it pretty
complicated
simple.
system. Yeah. So I try to keep ECS as small as possible, but obviously, like with the profile, I can see, all right, where do I maybe need to make something ECS or have something bursted, for example. I do check that from time to time,
Nice.
but yeah, at most points it isn't needed.
Yeah.
For some things, it would provide a small benefit, but you have to rewrite a lot of things, and it's like more work for a very little outcome.
Yeah, I kind of like the custom authoring components myself, just because it reminds me of making like custom inspectors in a way, where you can just kind of like do things kind of behind the scenes, and you can have a simple interface inside Unity to set all your values or whatever, and then maybe run some calculations on those, and then it will set up the data components how you want. But again, if you're keeping it pretty simple, which is probably the smart thing to do for performance, then there's not really a need always for those things.
Yeah, I personally don't see a reason to convert your whole project to ECS. If you want to do it as a hobby, sure, go ahead. But if you're making a commercial project, you're usually faster using game objects. Speaking from experience, right? If you are very, very fast ECS,
Yeah.
by all means, go do it. But there are some limitations still, like we talked about with just before the interview, like with text, for example.
Right.
Text and UI has to be a normal game object, so you have to make a bridge. It feels a bit wonky. It
Yeah.
could be better.
Yeah. So, and then I guess that kind of brings up the point of, what kinds of features do you really wish were in dots? Like, was there something that you were trying to do that, you just kept running into a wall and you couldn't find a good, clean solution for it yet? Like, it just doesn't seem like it's out there. Is there anything like that?
I wish some things would be easier, and certainly in terms of physics. I have been asking questions on the Unity forums, especially on the Havoc physics department, so to say.
Yeah.
Because the game had some crashes. Obviously, every computer is different, with different softwares, everything else. But I've been there a couple of times and have to ask, like, okay, how do I make it not crash? How do I do this? How do I do that, for example?
Yeah.
So one of the last bugs I had was like, okay, when the time scale is 0, when your game is passed, right? The physics world is not being updated. So you have to do that yourself. And it's so very prone to crashing. It's very easy to make mistakes where things go wrong, like fatally. Like it would crash your game.
It feels like you're
right?
walking on thin ice a little bit.
Yeah, and it's the same I had with the system for sound, for example, because there's no in normal Unity, right? You have like on collision enter, I believe.
Right. Yeah.
Something
It's
on
just
collision
super
stay.
easy to handle the collisions,
Yeah,
whereas ECS it's kind of messy and yeah.
yeah. So I had to write a system which is like 200 lines of code and it's very prone to breaking. And it works now, it works.
Yeah. You got
But
it dialed
get
in.
there,
Yeah.
yeah, at the point where it works, it's really good. But when you're struggling with it for a week or so, a week and a half, and things break so easily. Yeah, so when things break easily and you don't know why it's breaking, because there's no tutorial on it, there's no one helping you. You have to go to the forums. You have to ask, like, hey, things break, help. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what's happening behind the scenes,
Yeah.
right?
And I see Bill Zander in the chat says it's relieving to know that professional devs sometimes have to ask questions in the forums. Yeah, definitely. I
Yeah.
think if you're, a developer who, really wants to expand your knowledge, of course, forums and places like that, finding groups of people who have more knowledge in a particular area than you do, that's, such a good resource for you to, go out and talk with those kinds of people, learn from them. And especially in the Dots forums, the people who are working on Dots, they're active inside those forums. And like you mentioned, the Havoc physics. I know that I've asked a couple things in there, and I've gotten replies from people who are working directly on the Havoc physics engine, with their responses. So it's definitely the Unity forums are a great place for things like that.
I agree. Yeah, I also had like all of my questions have been answered by like the guys from Havoc, because usually the things that I asked was like different or very difficult. I was
The unique situations, yeah.
Yeah, it's like, okay, what happens when you set the time scale to 0? But for them it works. But obviously I have a whole game which is very complicated, which has a lot of different things that could go wrong.
Yeah.
So you would you'd have to ask your question, but obviously strip everything from your game, or you have to make sure, like, all right, it is not my game that is doing it,
Yeah.
but it is
Yeah.
like actually the Havoc engine before I ask any question, and
Yeah, just make sure it's actually something going wrong with their thing and not with your thing.
Yeah, but obviously if you ask a question, you have to explain like how your whole game works in terms of all of the systems talking together.
Kind of give them some context. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, But overall, they've been very, very helpful. You know, pretty good.
Yeah, yeah, totally. So kind of talking a little bit about performance. So it sounds like you kind of monitor performance, not like super religiously, but just kind of every once in a while. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, so I have this room where you can place down the marbles, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where you play in. And it's one of the things I've done at the past. You know, it's like, okay, I'm going to spawn in so many marbles, and at a certain point, you'll see the FPS drop, right?
Right.
And I obviously know, like, okay, my PC can handle, let's say, 4,000 marbles before it starts dropping below 60 FPS before the system
I was
kicks
getting to
in.
about 9,000, so just saying.
Pretty good, pretty good. I, I have seen videos of 15,000 and more. So
Wow.
it's like
Wow.
there are some very powerful PCs out there. But it's like one of the benchmarks I use. It's just okay. I have the empty room. I spawn some marbles. Is it still the same as last time? Or are there things going wrong? And obviously, I open up the profile every now and then and just check. All right, is everything still working? Are there maybe new scripts that are heavier than expected? Yeah, but overall, I've worked on a lot of mobile games, so
Okay.
I know a lot of optimization tricks and
Nice.
caching, for example. So you know a little bit like, okay,
Yeah.
how to program things beforehand
Yeah, that's
before it
really
goes wrong.
really helpful.
Yeah,
So that's kind of your
it really
background
is.
is mostly mobile game development.
Yeah,
Nice. Yeah, I
I've
mean,
done
definitely.
casual games
Okay.
and hyper casual games for like 1.5 years or so for a different company.
Nice.
So I know roughly, you know, what's heavy, what's not heavy, because some Unity internal things are quite heavy.
Nice. And you were
Um,
working
as
with
well.
Unity at your previous job?
Yeah, at least for the hyper casual games. The other casual games were done in HTML5,
Oh, okay.
so they were just web based games.
Nice. Yeah, I mean that's
So, yeah,
definitely you know, you definitely have to do a lot of performance optimizations when you're looking at mobile. So I think a lot of those skills probably translate pretty well over to performance on the higher end too.
yeah, and that's also one of the reasons, you know, I am using the universal render pipeline, um, because if I look at the future, you know, Marble World could be on mobile even. Marble World could be on the Xbox, could PS4, Switch, you know,
Yeah, yeah.
and if you are already stuck to the HD or the what's it called,
HDRP, high
the
definition render
HDRP,
pipeline. Yeah.
or that one, you know, you will sacrifice performance for
Right, right.
graphics. But I would love to have the other way around. So you know, you never know what the future might bring. So I might as well optimize the most out of the game, and you will get some more marbles in return.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
that
totally.
was also the whole point of it. You know, for every couple of milliseconds improvement, you know, you can spawn a bit more marbles.
Nice. And just kind of curious, what is the version of Unity and version of the ECS packages that you're using?
That's a very good question. I'm using the Unity 2020 version,
Okay.
dot 1.13, so it's a little bit behind, but that's okay. And let me just open up the package manager. I'm using the latest Havoc one, and if you install the Havoc package, it also automatically installs basically all the needed components.
Yeah.
So the entities one is um, where is it? 0.17. So I
Okay.
believe that's the
That
latest.
is the latest. Yeah.
Yeah, so everything is basically up to date except for obviously the Unity version. The other one is the hybrid. What's it called? Hybrid
Hybrid
rendering.
renderer. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm still using the version 1 of that
Oh,
instead of
okay.
the version 2. I did try to update it to version 2 at some point, but for some reason I lost some frames per second,
Oh.
and like marginally. So I was like, no, no.
Like, yeah, just stick with what works for now.
Yeah, I think updating project is not really needed often, you know,
Have
unless you really have to, right?
have you had to update the ECS packages, or did you pretty much start working on this with the version 17 of entities?
No, I did start with Havoc 0.3, I believe,
Mm-hmm.
and whatever entities package was related to that one.
Okay.
And it was some version below that. But I believe for the Havoc stuff, it was only some bug fixes, not any new things added or improvements to it. I
And
think, yeah.
were there any issues when you did have to go to update, other than
No.
what you had already mentioned with the hybrid renderer?
No, not really. I think at least updating the Havoc package didn't break anything, or so it was all very smoothly.
Nice.
Um, yeah, yeah. So it's been I think if they update it again, I might go with it. If they put out another update, um, I might as well go with it. But obviously, with the actual Unity version, I'm pretty much stuck there. In terms of the hybrid rendering and such.
All right, makes sense. And then kind of going back to performance, was there anything that like surprised you one way or another that like gave you a whole lot of performance when you didn't think it might give you a lot of performance when you changed something up? Or conversely, is there something that you thought would give you a huge performance benefit that really just didn't make a difference?
Yeah, the sorting of the marbles for the names above them is
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that it took like 4 or 5 milliseconds every frame. So that's a very big chunk, right?
Right.
Um, and right now it's like 0.03 milliseconds. So it's like amazed by it. Like, oh, it's so good. I
Wow.
can have unlimited marbles, and yeah, it's really fast.
Yeah.
And bursting just a simple algorithm, just one simple function, basically sorting, um, proved very easily. So it's like very easily, lots of performance gain. Why don't do it? So that was a very good part. But I didn't have anything else that was like didn't give me the results that I wanted. Um, oh well, there is one thing on
All
Reddit
right.
sometimes, right? On Reddit, you see sometimes people showcasing demos of Havoc or Unity Physics and Dots, like, and saying, "All right, I can spawn 20,000 cubes or 20,000
Right.
spheres, right?" And they're all
Yeah.
falling into the void. But that's all fine. But if you have them rolling around, that's like way more performance.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so what I realized later on is like, all of these posts are all very cool to see, but if you make a real game with it, you're not going to hit the 20K unless you have a really good PC.
Yeah.
But it's
Yeah.
not it's not the average player, so it's not something really you should advertise. And it's the same what I did with Marble World. I advertised 6,000 marbles. I was like, if you have a mid-range PC, mine's a little bit above that, um, you should be able to get it. So I'm
Nice.
not going to advertise 25,000, even if that's
Yeah.
the option.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So how have you kind of been managing that as far as like keeping in mind like the minimum specs of a PC that someone might be running your game on, and kind of doing performance testing at that level?
I do have a laptop which is like 5 years old and which doesn't have updated drivers as such. It's full of old software and you know, and it's basically one of the performance things I run the game on every now and then. So just start it up, play some Marble Worlds. How many marbles can I place? It's roughly 1,000. And I do have a system um, which checks your frames per second. If your frames per second goes
Right.
down below a threshold, the game slows down, and
Yeah,
then
I
you
was
can
gonna
play
bring
more
that up.
marbles.
That was kind of one of the
Yeah,
coolest parts about it that I saw. Like when I was spamming, like spawning as many marbles as I could, like I saw a little notification pop up saying, your frame rate is dipped down. We're actually slowing the
yeah,
game down. So yeah, anyone who
yeah,
hasn't played the game yet, basically the game kind of goes into like a slow motion mode, and then that brings the frames per second back up, which I thought was a really neat idea.
yeah. It was already also asked on the Unity forums. I was
Okay.
like, hey, I'm having a lot of um, what's it called, frame issues, so to say.
Yeah.
If I have a lot of marbles, and they were
Yeah.
like, hey, I can see that. I added a picture of the profiler, and they were like, hey, here you can see like Unity's trying to keep up with the calculations, but it can't, so it's going to skip frames. There's a couple of things you can do, and I was like, all right, there's this game called Besiege, and Besiege is if you've played it, it's a game where you can make like medieval devices, basically, so to say, with wheels and such, and
Okay.
things that can fire their stuff. And the game also has like really heavy calculations and slows down if it's too much. And I was like, all right, yeah, that's pretty much the same system, right? So I'm just going to measure what your frames is, and if your frames drop, I'm going to slow down the game for you in order to still have the 60 FPS,
Yeah.
in order to have a smooth gameplay experience,
Nice. Yeah, I thought that was a really neat
Yeah.
idea. Well, there are some things that I kind of want to talk about your game in general, but was there anything that you still wanted to talk about as far as DOTS development and kind of performance or any other kind of more technical development experiences?
I think you should only do ECS really in parts if you actually really need it in design choice, right? So if you have a game where you have thousands of something, then ECS is really good. But if you make a game that would run perfectly fine with 15 enemies or so on normal game objects, I personally say don't even bother with it. If you haven't worked with ECS, it's a lot of work getting into it. The whole mindset idea of it, implementing it, not breaking everything because it's still preview.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, there's a
there's
big
a lot
learning
of
curve and, save you a couple
yeah.
headaches, I'm sure.
At least for commercial game, right? If you're doing a hobby
Yeah.
game,
Yeah, totally. Just,
it's whatever, right? Just
experiment
go
with
for
it
it.
with whatever you want to learn. Yeah.
Yeah, but if you're making a commercial game, every hour counts, and you have to make your decisions like, all right, am I fast enough to learn it? Or, there's also one of the things that I included for myself, like, okay, how fast can I learn new things?
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it was decent enough,
Nice.
But yeah, so ECS it's a little bit iffy, it's not complete. There are some things missing even if you implement it. For example, the marbles don't have any reflection or anything. There's a lot of
Okay.
things that entities don't have
Yeah.
compared to normal game objects, and it's probably a long way off for it to be the same as game objects.
Nice. Yeah, I think that's a good point about what you said. If your like design idea doesn't necessarily require the need for taking advantage of the performance benefits with dots when you have many entities, then it almost doesn't make sense to use. So I think that's a good point.
Yeah, I think so too. There was one guy in the chat who's saying like dots should be automatic behind the scene, and I agree with that. I think some things should be like way easier, similar to Unreal Engine, for example. Obviously, that's a way bigger game engine.
Yeah.
But yeah, you, for example, the multiplayer department of that engine is just like, all right, you just tick some boxes, multiplayer works.
Right. Yeah. Must be
and
nice.
I feel like
Must be nice.
yeah, that probably feels really good. And I was like, for in the end, right? Unity in the end should also have just a button like, okay, optimize everything for me.
Yeah.
Just help me with it.
Yeah. Yeah. It'll be interesting to see how they incorporate that because, from what I can tell, it seems like they want to eventually bring dots to a wider audience. But as of right now, you have to be pretty technical to understand this. Like, you have to kind of be pretty familiar with computer programming, how computers work in general, in order to like really get all the performance benefits. So it'd be interesting to see how they kind of incorporate that, or maybe even kind of hide things behind the scenes in the dots visual scripting. So it'll be interesting to see how it evolves over the next couple of years.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's also one of the things that Unity's always presenting itself as a very easy to learn game engine. And
Right.
that is true, right?
I agree. Yeah.
It's very easy to use as a beginner, but obviously dots is very difficult.
Right.
So I'm wondering like if they want to bring dots as the primary way of programming things.
Yeah, it's like, are you really gonna like teach some kid who's just learning program about like entity command buffers and blittable data types and all this stuff
some things in ECS are really difficult, and I'm wondering like, are they ever going to get to the point where it gets as easy as normal game objects are?
Right.
The whole concept, the whole mindset, everything else around it. Because
even like you said about how there's the whole like on collision enter, on trigger enter, all that stuff.
Yeah.
There isn't those built-in event functions in DOS. You have to basically manually create all those and do your own checks and balances inside there. So that's
Yeah.
it's pretty difficult for someone who just wants to make a simple little game.
Yeah. Yeah, I certainly agree. And if they ever push dots to be the main thing, of Unity, they'll, I think, lose out on the easy game making. What's it called? Easy game making image they have right
Just
now.
like the level
Like
of
if you talk,
entry.
yeah, the level of entry right now is very easy. But if you
Yeah.
have dots as your main primarily thing, then that will probably go away.
At least in the
That
state that it is now. Yeah.
in the state that it's now, yeah. So yeah, I'm hoping they'll might find a way, or you know, in some way or another, make it better.
Yeah.
Certainly.
Great. All
Mm.
right. So the game Marble World, it's in early access now, correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
And you've been developing it for how long, you said?
Since last summer, I started full time,
Okay.
so it's a little over half a year at this
Nice.
point. Yeah,
And
and I did work.
go ahead.
I did make a small prototype in 3 years ago, 2018,
Oh, wow. Okay.
when I got that idea, and which is still somewhere online on the internet. You can play it for free.
Nice.
But it's really shit. It's like the whole code base was like garbage, and I was like, no,
Yeah. Yeah.
in not any way salvageable. I had to start from scratch, which I did. And it turns out currently there's a pretty good base, if I say so myself,
Yeah.
where I can build where I can build new features upon, and change things,
Yeah.
and it's very flexible.
Now that's always
Yeah,
a fun exercise, going back through your old code and seeing the
yeah,
things that
certainly.
you're trying to do. You're like, what? Why was? Oh my gosh! If only I knew.
Yeah, certainly.
Yeah. So what's kind of your experience been like doing Steam Early Access? How's that been going for you? Have you been? What have kind of been your strategies as far as kind of like building up an audience and things like that?
Let's see. So, in order to put on a Steam page, right, you need to have some visuals. You need to have some
Right.
text.
Yeah.
You need to show your game and tell everybody, hey, this is the game which you want to buy, right? You want to buy this game.
Yeah.
But obviously, Marvel World didn't have any, like the whole aesthetic of Marvel World didn't came until end of November. And
Okay.
even then, it was very rough.
So
Very
you're
rough
just
to
kind of
see.
using just basically gray primitives and stuff like that before, like as you're
Up until
prototyping.
that, yeah. Yeah. So there was like months and months. Even the first 3 months or 2 months, I didn't have any marbles. I was just building like the whole track placing system, moving things
Oh,
and
okay. Okay.
saving,
Just kind of
loading.
getting that base like infrastructure in
Yeah.
place. Yeah.
Yeah, it was very important. So the page went live 29th of February, the end of February, somewhere.
Okay.
The Steam page, and if you compare it to the release date of early access on 7th May, that's very, very short. So in hindsight, I should have put on that page earlier, but the game wasn't like uh, as good yet. There were a lot of things that were still wrong, a lot of things that had still to be developed or
Mm-hmm.
improved visually. So because you also have to make a trailer, you have to show some gameplay,
Right.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's tough
But
because you only have like kind of one basically like day where you go live basically with all that stuff, and so you want to have
yeah,
the good looking visuals in place, have a logo for your game, nice description, of course, have a trailer. So
yeah,
definitely getting all that in place is it's a lot of work.
yeah, it certainly is. And well, the difficult part of Marbles is normally if you have a game like with a storyline, for example, right? You can make a vertical slice of the game,
Right.
and you can make a trailer of one level. But obviously with Marble, there is no levels. There is no
Yeah, the vertical slice is the game.
vertical slice. Is the whole game.
Yeah.
So in order to get a good trailer, good pictures, I had to do a lot of work. To get to the point where I could say, all right, I want to launch the Steam page with this, right? With what I have now. But yeah, if you are making a game, please make your Steam page as early as possible, really, because I needed it at least for it, it. it would have benefited me a lot, let's say,
Yeah.
if I did it. But obviously, I couldn't, because the whole game is a vertical slice.
Yeah,
Um, but
exactly.
that's one of the things, that where you run into later on. It's like, all right, I have to do marketing. What do I need? Oh, I need a Steam pitch. I need a Twitter. I need to show things, right? But the game wasn't ready to show because there's um, so much to do, right?
Right.
Before you get to that point, with this game at least.
Right. And so you're just a completely solo developer. You're the only person on your team, is that right?
Yeah, I'm all by myself. I do have some friends who are also in the game development industry, so I can use them to talk about designs or things like, hey, does
Yeah.
this look good? Does
Yeah.
this sound good? What do you think of
Yeah,
this?
you got to
Right?
have people to bounce ideas off of, but I mean, yeah, it's so tough going through the whole process of not only developing a game, but doing all the marketing, getting an audience for your game. Like you were saying, put together a whole Steam page. So yeah,
Yeah,
it's a lot.
and also for me personally, I'm really bad at art. So having to come up with an art style was also very difficult. I
Hey,
tried
I
some
I think
different
Marble
things.
World looks great, by the way. Just saying.
Thank you very much. But yeah, there are some screenshots around there where it looked very realistic and where it looked like strange. There are some different art paths you can take
Hmm.
as a non-artist. Um, and that's one of the things that's really difficult as a one-man team. You have to do
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah. No,
Of the
I
marketing,
think the
of the
art style
PR.
of your game
Yeah,
it's really nice. It's just like kind of that cute, fun little vibe. Like it doesn't need to be like crazy high realistic and you don't
yeah,
necessarily need, ray tracing and all this stuff. So
yeah. Certainly,
it
yeah,
fits your game really well.
yeah. I think so too.
And so what have you kind of been doing as far as audience building? I know I actually came across your game on Reddit. You had put up a post there, and it was just
Oh yeah.
a total coincidence because I rarely go on Reddit. So I came across that. I saw that you were kind of using like dots and stuff like that, and I thought it was really cool. But what have you been doing to kind of get the word out there for your game?
So I had Twitter, which had 5 followers up until the launch of the game.
Okay.
Um, I did some Reddit posts, and the first post got like 150 upvotes on Unity subreddit. The other ones after that already stopped at like 30 or so. I feel like you have to make some really good um, content to get to like the front
Yeah,
page, for
Reddit is
example, to get
brutal,
on the
huh?
top. It's very brutal. I have a TikTok account and I did some videos on that, which were
Okay.
pretty good. So
Nice.
some of them got like 2,000 views, which is pretty good. But I'm not sure if that really correlates to any increased wish list or something.
Nice.
At least not that I noticed. Uh, as far as looking at the graphs. I also had a Imgur account, so I posted some gifs on Imgur. One of them or two of them did really well. The others not so much. So all of the social media has been a very hit or miss.
Okay.
I didn't have one big viral thing going on.
It was just kind of the
And part
combination of just different places around the internet, different people
Yeah,
picking up the game. Yeah.
there is this subreddit called Game Dev, which is what I look at a lot. A lot of people post what you call it, their successes, right, and how they got to it. And some of them say like, all right, I used Imgur, I used TikTok, I used this and that. But obviously, you have to make some really good content in order to make it go viral. You
Yeah.
have to
Yeah.
get very, very lucky. Basically, I didn't. Not with Twitter, not with Reddit, not with Imgur, TikTok, or anything. None of them actually went viral. Um, but obviously, when sending out keys to YouTubers, one of them picked it up, Scrapman. It was
Okay.
like a week and a half before the launch date, early access, and I had like 250 wish lists, right? And I was like, oh my god, this is not going to go end well. But he made a video and it got like 250,000 views, and
Wow.
there you go. Yeah, and he made like 4 or 3 other artists right now, And as soon as
Wow.
that, the emails dropped in from other very big YouTubers with like millions of subscribers, and it was like it got basically exploded.
Yeah.
Um, but if that didn't happen, I would have launched with like maybe 300 wish lists, Um,
Okay.
so it would have been a very, very different story.
Yeah.
Um, very different, yeah.
No, that's awesome that you got it picked up by someone who played your game, got a whole bunch of eyeballs on it. I think that's
Yeah.
that's big. Were there any particular strategies that you could maybe share with people for finding those content creators, or how did you link up with that particular content creator?
So I know. So I have. I don't own the games, but I know there are some games who are similar to Marble World, and one of them is Tracks, which is the train set game. I don't know if you
Oh,
might have
okay.
seen it or played it. It's very similar. So I just googled that, and like, okay, which reporter made a article on it, which YouTuber made it videos, or which streamer streamed that game,
Yeah.
and I just emailed those and said like, hey, I saw you create videos on Tracks. Marble World is almost the same, but then with marbles. Would you like to try it out? Here's a key. Have fun. If you want to make a video, that's cool. If you don't, sure.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know.
yeah.
So basically, I looked at similar games that are similar to my game. And if you're making a game, just look at games that are similar to your game, and just email people like, hey, you're a content creator. You've played this game. I've made this game, which is very similar. Would you like to play it? Here's the key. Have fun. And just give away those keys to those people, because if they make a video, it really makes a very big difference.
Yeah, yeah, that's super smart, and just kind of like not necessarily blindly going out to a bunch of content creators, but actually doing like focused research. Finding people who actually might be interested in playing your game, people who actually have an audience that would be interested in your game as well, and then reaching out to those people directly, making a nice personalized message. Even one of the tips that I've heard that people do is they'll kind of like get involved in a content creator's Discord, and then maybe befriend some of the moderators there a little bit and say, hey, here's kind of a Steam key, pass it along to whoever. So I think that was kind of a cool one too.
Yeah, that also sounds cool. It sounds a bit strange, to specifically become
Yeah,
friends
yeah, it's a
with someone
little
in order to like,
well,
not,
not
it's not
necessarily
really
not
my
necessarily
style.
befriend, I guess, but more just kind of maybe just kind of start a dialogue with the moderators, because they would usually be a little more accessible to reach out to than like some big streamer with hundreds of thousands of subscribers or whatever.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, and there are some people have made articles like on how to make a good email, for example, with a certain headline, with a certain topic, say like, all right, these things have to be in your email, give them the key, and just hope for the best. In the end, it's also a lot of luck. If
Yeah.
Scrapman didn't make the video, um, who knows what would have happened? Because some other big YouTubers came to me instead of me to them, because I thought, I did see the channels, but I was like, no, it doesn't really fit, within their category,
Okay.
within a certain type of games they play. So I hesitated to send the email, but then they contacted me because they saw Scrapman made a video.
Oh,
And I was like,
interesting.
cool.
It's kind of like a
So
little viral effect almost.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, that's basically it. Because if someone sees a big YouTuber creating a video, they want to do it as well, And you are one of the first to do it with a new game. If it takes off, right, you have that first video. You have that virality.
Right.
Yeah. So all in all, it's also being very lucky in the end. With going viral in, I don't know, Twitter, Imgur, TikTok, Reddit. You can do only so much as a single developer, right? I still have to work on the game.
Right.
I have to maintain everything else. Even running a business itself also takes hours. You have
Yep.
to file taxes and
Totally.
everything.
Yep.
Um, so yeah, doing the marketing part, you really need to take time for that and just hope for the best, really, or have a lot of money and just buy ads. I guess that also works. If you have a lot of money, just spend it on ads on Reddit or Facebook or whatever.
Yeah, that could work as well. Yeah, I mean
Yeah.
the whole content creator thing, I think that's an important one, because if you think about just kind of like the last things that you bought in general, like most of the time it was because someone recommended them to you. So kind of having some like content creator who a lot of people are familiar with, putting their name essentially behind a game, and they're out there having fun with it, having a good time with it, and kind of encouraging people to play it as well. It's definitely does a lot as far as, I'm sure, getting more wish lists and people actually buying your game goes.
Yeah, certainly, certainly. Yeah, the only reason I buy games is through content creators.
Yeah.
I watch a video and I think it looks interesting. Maybe because the person makes it look interesting. It's also a very big factor.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Gone are the
then
days where you just, went down to GameStop and pick up a box and said, and this looks cool, I guess.
yeah, yeah, it's very different because you already see the game and it looks fun and just buy it.
Yeah.
Um, and I think it's very different from seeing an ad or maybe a viral post or anything.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been difficult. The whole marketing topic itself, if you've never done that, it can be very challenging, and it's so important
Yeah. It's,
to
it's absolutely a
start
new
early.
skill to learn. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Start early
it
is
totally
key.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And then so you are in early access right now. So I guess what do you kind of plan to get out of early access? Are you mostly looking for feedback right now? How much more of the game are you still trying to develop at this phase? I guess what are you looking at right now? What's kind of on your plan for now?
So I have some things written down on the roadmap, right? One of them, for example, something small is a marble following camera. It's
Oh,
a
okay,
very
cool.
simple thing, but it's very cool. To follow a marble just going around your track. Um, some other things I've recently announced is a system similar to Terraria or Minecraft's Redstone. Where you can use signals to open or close things, use timers, use triggers. So marble goes to a trigger, it opens a door somewhere, or
Hmm.
it lowers a
Making kind of
ramp.
little logic puzzles in there and stuff.
Yeah,
That would be
yeah,
really
yeah.
cool.
So that's one of the things, right? That I'll do somewhere during early access, probably at the end.
Yeah.
Um, but it will make the game so much bigger and so much more fun. You know. Uh, and next to that, there's like different themes that I've planned. I want to do roughly 5 themes, and I recently, yesterday or the day before, I said to the community, "All right, I've got 2 themes. Which one of the two do you want to have in the base game?" Simple as that. And they're all going to vote for one or the other, and the one that wins obviously gets into the game. And the other one
Nice.
will probably get released as a DLC or something later on. But yeah, currently the game is at like maybe 20% content or something of what I want it to
Oh, wow,
be.
okay.
Um, the things I'm visualizing in my head is more like Planet Coaster, for example, when you see those really big parks with full detail, and
Yeah, yeah,
everything has like little details left and right. It looks really
yeah.
good, and that's something what I want as well. Having a lot of effects, placed down things that make music, maybe um, making things look good. In a certain theme, or you know, instead of just having those very basic tracks, so to say. That's what it is now. So there's yeah, a lot of things planned for it, but it's going to be very awesome. I'm sure
Yeah.
of that.
Yeah, totally. And so
Yeah.
do you, I mean, not necessarily, you don't necessarily have to announce anything right now, but do you have kind of a time window of when you want to actually do a full release?
I was thinking of 4 months from now on.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's possible. And otherwise it might be somewhere at the end of the year. You
Okay.
know, I don't think this is a game that should be like 5 years in early access or something. There are
Yeah,
there,
yeah,
there are some games like that, and I'm looking at it and it's like, why?
yeah.
You know,
Just get the game
what are
out,
you?
you know.
Yeah, I mean, what are you implementing, right? That takes 5 years, for example. So Marble World right now just took half a year, right? So if we just add in additional content, track pieces or whatever, it takes me maybe half an hour to do one new track piece. And then it's automatically already paintable and everything else. The whole game scales with itself. But yeah, I'm not planning to follow any. Uh, I'm not going to name any indie games, right? But there are some indie games who have been very long in early access. I don't want to do that
Yeah,
stuff
and
now.
it's kind of almost like, the hype builds up, and then after a while, you kind of start to lose that momentum. So you don't really want to be stuck in that, spot.
Yeah, and personally, I think like there's only so much content that really needs to be in. I don't see a need for doing tons and tons of stuff, and really bloating the game with hundreds and thousands of different systems.
Yeah.
It should just be all right. I have a vision of the game. As soon as that vision is there, you can do stuff what I think that you should be able to do. We're ready to go. you know.
So you pretty much have kind of like the core base concept of the game implemented, and then now it's basically just adding more features to get to that vision that you have.
Yeah. So obviously, right, when you look at the game right now, there are some different things like placing tracks, decorations, customizing marbles, painting things. Those are like the 4 or 5 basic pillars of the game, so to say. And I'm going to expand onto that, with more content, more decoration, more tracks, more of everything. And adding to that, there are some little more features, like the um, redstone system from Minecraft, for example, right? To name one of the things.
Yeah.
So there's going to be some little extra things left and right, but I think in the end, it's worth its money. It's yeah.
Awesome. Well, cool. So I think now I just kind of like to open it up to the chat a little bit. If you have any questions, maybe things about dots and ECS development, or just kind of like the game in general, and maybe the experience of going through the whole development process and marketing, releasing, and all that. And in the meantime, make sure, of course, you do hit the like button on this video. That really helps us. And go check out Marble World. You can get it again on Steam Early Access right now. I do have a link down in the description of this video, so you can go check that out. So if anyone's got any questions, feel free to drop them in.
I saw that some other people were talking about indeed not seeing dots going anywhere, and the audience being for beginners as well. I think that's
yeah. How do you feel about that?
Much.
Because as far as like dots not going anywhere, because personally, as far as I can tell, it's still in full development, and maybe there might not be talking about it as much as they were. Like you kind of mentioned some of the Unite talks from a couple years ago. It seems like they're kind of working quietly in the background, but it's still in full development as far as I can tell. I don't know if you have any different thoughts on that.
I don't really follow the Unity stuff too closely.
Okay.
Mostly like I'm looking at things like, all right, I am missing something. For example, with the entities not having any reflections or anything. I'm like, all right, why don't they? And then you find out, you have to have a different Unity version of that. But yeah, I'm not someone who checks up on the whole Unity status every now and then. I'm just like, okay, I want to make this game. This is what I got. This is what I can do.
Gotcha. You're kind of more like, this is the tool set that I have right now. I'm going to use this. Nice. Yeah, and then people like me can be all in the forums and blog posts looking at all the new features.
Yeah. Certainly. Yeah, but I mean, some things are like really hard to implement. I reckon for them, and it'll take a lot of time, I suppose. So there's no need to update it like every week or so. Oh, we are now this far, That's what I think, at least.
Nice. Yeah. So John Anthony asks a good question here. Any pitfalls you need to look for when working with ECS and dots? Is there anything, any kind of programming practice that you don't necessarily want to, like something that you might think that you should do, but then if you do that, then you're going to end up stabbing yourself in the back at some point?
Not really. Well, more on the physics department, which I already talked about, like being able to crash the game really easily. And especially if you're a beginner at ECS, it's very easy to make a mistake because everything has to be grouped in the same update group, and you have to say like, all right, it has to update before this, but after that, and it's a lot of things like you normally don't even think about it, when you program with Unity, everything is on one thread, it's whatever, right? So yeah, a lot of things that everything's becoming multi-threaded, and even though it's thread safe, there are some things that you have to look up, and it's very very rough to learn. For example, this when implementing systems, they're system based, but they used to have like something with job even, and there were some other things prior to that, and there's a lot of tutorials that are on YouTube that are outdated right now.
Yeah.
And if you follow those, it's
mine included. I definitely have some outdated ECS tutorials, so.
Yeah. So you're like, okay, I'm gonna learn ECS, right? And there's a lot of outdated stuff, and that's one of the pitfalls, right?
Yeah.
And they are true, in some percentage, like 70% or is still the same, but a lot of the stuff has changed.
Right.
Um, and it's certainly rough when not too many people are making tutorials.
Gotcha. And then, yeah, Jordan Marsh kind of asks if you could start over with marbles, would you go with dots again or go for just kind of a more pure multi-threading and burst? If you're doing it a second time, or maybe even if you do end up doing a marbles world too.
Um, no, I think I would do it exactly the same as it is now. I
Okay.
think just applying ECS on the spots where it matters the most, where you can get the most benefit. I think that's more important, at least to me, right? Because I personally didn't do new ECS or anything about that. So
Yeah.
for me, it's very slow to implement, and I was like, oh, I don't want to spend more time than needed because I know a lot about Unity normal, like the normal game object stuff, but not about ECS.
Yeah.
So I want to limit that to the places where it matters the most, but obviously not everywhere. So in the end, it would probably be completely the same. Everything game objects, and then check out things that need or could benefit from ECS.
Yeah, that's great to know. Just knowing that, maybe you've had kind of some struggles along the way, and some things that you've definitely kind of learned. But overall, it's been a benefit for you that you've been able to use this technology to bring your vision to life. So I think that's really cool.
Yeah. Oh, that is one thing I could talk about actually.
Yeah, let's hear
So
it.
when I converted the marbles right to ECS, I didn't think of having the need to also convert the tracks to entities
Okay.
because obviously entities don't collide with normal Unity colliders,
Right.
and that's something I just didn't think of. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to um, add ECS as the through the package manager, right? I'm going to convert the models, and then it should be all right, right? And it turned out, it didn't. And then there was a slight panic, like, shit, do I have to write the whole game again? Do I have to start from scratch? There are certainly some things that don't work as expected, and then there's a slight panic, like, oh, did I do it wrong? Do I have to start all over again? How can I salvage this in the easiest way possible, right? Because
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
again like barely any um, helping hands on forums or videos tutorials, to guide you through it. Um, so dots slash ECS can be very scary, especially when things don't go right as expected.
Yeah. No, I'm sure. And that's that's really cool that you're kind of using this brand new technology and, being able to make something cool with it, even though there is, not as many resources, and it's still a technology that's in active development, going under a whole bunch of changes, and, not everything necessarily works as you'd expect it to. So
Yeah, it's been a very tense ride sometimes, for if I were to name another example, when the game launched, right, a lot of people were like, "Oh, the game crashes. The game crashes for me," and I was like, "Yeah, I don't know how that happens. I have absolutely no idea. How would I fix that? Because normally Unity is very safe. You just make a build and it works, right? But having to work with very unstable projects that work on your machine but not on others is, yeah, frightening a bit. Having a lot of players with issues but not knowing the immediate way to fix it, and you want to fix it as soon as possible because
yeah, yeah,
you
yeah.
you,
Someone's
you,
having
you
a bad
really,
experience with your game, and they're calling it
yeah,
out to you. Obviously, it's like you're like,
yeah,
oh man, that sucks. But
yeah, and they're writing bad reviews, for example, and you're like, oh well, no, I
yeah,
have to fix it,
you're like,
but
yeah,
someone help me, and you're all alone, and things things can be very very tough for a
yeah.
commercial game, right?
So yeah, how's that been as far as like people getting their hands on your game and you seeing their experience with it? How's that been for you?
Very scary. I think the first video that was created, prior to the launch, or because I gave out some keys,
Yeah,
it was very good to see. But suddenly, everybody starts making videos, and I can't watch it, and it's very scary to. Well, yeah, it sounds a bit weird, but it's very scary to see someone play your game and then things are going wrong, like on a video with 100,000 views, and like, oh shit, all of
yeah.
these
You're like,
people have they all have seen that bug, the bug that just went wrong. It's like, it feels bad. You obviously want to put out a good game, right?
Mm-hmm.
A game that's polished, and you don't want things to show up. Certainly not in a video for so many people, right?
And
Yeah.
what are some of kind of like the cool or interesting or completely unexpected things that you've seen people do in your game? Like something that just like kind of totally threw you off guard, like just kind of something you weren't expecting.
I saw people, um, well, obviously, well, not misusing, not abusing, but using the track pieces other than intended, like putting them on the side, for example, or
Oh, okay,
uh,
okay.
I have loopings, for example, and if you put them on the side, you can make a rotating tower upwards. If you add
Oh,
boosters to
okay.
them, you can actually move those marbles upwards
Oh,
or
that's
downwards.
cool. Okay.
So people are starting to use things in unconventional ways, and that's really cool. That's the whole point of a sandbox game, right? You have some tools, um, and just go ahead and use the tools however you want. You have track pieces, unlimited of them. Do whatever you want. If you want to make a track completely out of decorations without any actual track pieces, do that.
Yeah.
But
And
yeah,
I, go
those
ahead.
are some of the things that are like very cool to see, like people finding new ways to use things or giving it a new visual
Yeah,
effect.
using the existing tools to do something that they weren't intended to be used as, but it
Yeah,
still works and it does something, different and unique. So yeah,
yeah,
that's really cool.
yeah,
Yeah, I think a game like yours, kind of going back to talking about the streamer thing, it really like lends itself well to people like that making content about it, because the people who see it, they want to play it. They start thinking in their heads like, oh, I wonder if I did this and this. So that kind of makes them want to pick the game up, as opposed to maybe something just like a quick little story game that they play through. People wouldn't have that same experience with.
yeah, certainly. And also one of the things that I've thought of is like when I did Minecraft for the first time, right? There is no hand holding. There is no objective, right? You just start somewhere and you start breaking blocks. And it's a little bit the same with this game. There's no one telling you what to do. And for some people who aren't as creative, right, it's not really their game. So you are eliminating a little bit of the player base, so to say, by creating a sandbox game, right?
Yeah, but then when you eliminate it, when you make a game for everyone, you make a game for no one. I mean, there's no way to
Certainly.
please
Yeah.
everyone. So, it's good that you kind of found your audience and the types of people who might be interested in your game, the things kind of they value. So I think that's important to kind of like know those people well and be able to cater to them to make a game that they would enjoy.
Certainly. Yeah. Certainly.
Cool. Looks like we do have one more question from John Anthony here. So, on a business side, did you set up your LLC when you started or right before you released?
So an LLC is different
So,
in
yeah,
the Netherlands.
in the States, that's a limited liability company. So, it's basically just kind of a simple way of incorporating yourself and kind of giving you some basic protections as basically being a business entity.
Yeah, I believe that's the same what I got, but obviously in the Netherlands, right? So I just have a company and I'm just the owner. There's no one else to it, and you get some benefits from that. And I did start it like right as I started the game. So in November or so was the earliest. I said, hey, I want to start a company, this name, let's go. And then I had to, because I'm not from the States, right? I had to have some contact with the IRS for some tax deducting stuff, and had to write a mail and such. And it took me like 4 months or so to get a response back, just in time for the release, like 2 weeks before that.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but yeah, I
I'm
do
not even
have
gonna get
a
into that, but yeah, that's
company. Yeah, but to answer the question, yeah, I did start up a company. I think it's an LLC in the States. Um, as soon as I could, yeah, at the start.
nice.
Yeah.
Cool. And then I guess we can probably start wrapping up soon. So, did you have any just kind of maybe advice for people who are developing a game project, maybe as a solo developer or on a small team, or maybe even someone on a little bit of a larger team? Because I know you have some kind of development experience working for a company. So, what's kind of your parting advice for any younger game developers out there?
I think it's very good to know your boundaries. You
Mm,
want to make a game, you have to know what you can do. Especially things you've done before. That's very important. And I think another important part is how fast can you expand those boundaries. Um, so when I started Marble World, I knew I could make Marble World with the normal Unity stuff, right, without any ECS. But I knew, like, from experience with the other company, like, okay, I can expand my knowledge base really fast. So doing ECS is doable for me. So I could say to myself, all right, I can do this game within 7 months or so. That is doable for me. But obviously, like, Marvel is a very big game. It's
yeah,
a
I
very
mean, how
complicated
how
one as well.
difficult is time estimating? you know?
It, that's true, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, if you have a game idea, right, which has a start and an ending, you know roughly what's going to be in there. um, be aware of your boundaries and be aware of how fast you can expand those boundaries, um, in order to make the game within a certain time frame, right? And if it's your hobby, it's whatever. But if it's a commercial game, right, and you're going for something, it's very important to at least have a rough estimate, like, okay, I think I can do this within this time frame. Uh, yeah, and just know yourself, know what you can do. I think that's the most important part.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic advice. And
Yeah,
so, yeah, I think with that, we'll wrap it up. I think this was really nice. Again, thank you to Rink for joining me. I know it's getting a little bit late for you over in the Netherlands, so
a little
appreciate
bit.
you, appreciate you coming on here with me. And then, of course, to everyone watching, thank you all for hanging out, being active in the chat. I really appreciate that. Again, make sure you hit the like button. Let me know in the comments section below if you do want to see any more of these game developer interviews. I thought this was a ton of fun. Would love to do more of these. And Rinke, you're welcome back anytime, especially as we get closer to the launch of your game.
Maybe in future. Yeah,
Awesome.
sounds good.
All right. Well, thanks everyone. I will see y'all later.
Bye bye.